Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our second part of our webinar series. And today's all about questioning. And I'd probably argue this is one of the most important elements of the sales professional. I've worked now with just around 26,000 salespeople. And when I analyse some of the top performers, and I've had the pleasure really of actually interviewing the top 1% of sales professionals all over the world I've ever worked with. And one thing I've noticed in common with the lesser performers, the average and below, is they ask the wrong question. And questions are everything because questions create emotion. Questions evoke a response. It evokes a feeling. It engages somebody. It gets somebody talking. There's so many reasons that we ask these questions, and most salespeople I work with on a regular basis, they have almost this autopilot set of questions that just do not get the best response. And the key is, if you're asking a question and it's the wrong sort of question, it's very unlikely you're going to get the right outcome. So what I want to explore today is what are the right types of questions? When do we ask them? How do we ask them to get the best possible response? So before I get into it, everyone who's logging in today, and the numbers are going up as we speak, we're very grateful for you tuning in and watching myself. And for that, we'd like to give you a gift. And I'd like to give you a free copy of the ebook Coffees for Closers. This was an Amazon bestseller that I wrote in November. It got published November 2012. I'm really proud of it. It was my first out of 5 books I've written, but it was the only one that got the Amazon bestseller for telemarketing. So on Monday, if you want a copy, Adam Johnson will send out via PDF a copy of my ebook for everyone who's logged in today. And I'm going to be talking about something else that we're going to be launching as well, but I'm going to leave that till the end of this workshop. So let me kick off the open questions. The first thing I want to pick up on is a point I've just made, that most salespeople ask the wrong question. And let me give you a real basic example. I do a lot of work in the real estate market, and a lot of negotiators who are qualifying their buyers, they will say things like, Mr. Buyer, have you been looking long for your property? And the buyer will say, yeah, I have, good few weeks. And then they'll go, great, have you seen anything you like? And they'll say, no, which is why I'm spending my afternoon viewing with you. It's the wrong questions. So if you look at what they're asking, both of them are closed. Have you been looking long? Yes or no. Have you seen anything you like? Yes or no. I know what they're trying to get, but they're asking the wrong question to get it. So one better open question than both of those. Those of you watching, I'd like you to write into the chat room now, what do you think is one better open question that combines both of those? As in, have you been looking long? And have you seen anything you like? How are you finding your search is better, definitely better, but there's better ones. Keep them coming. And when you get this, guys, and if we don't get it from you, I'll share it. And I call these killer questions. So one of you put, so how's your search going? Have you seen many? Again, I can say yes or no. What type of property are you looking for? Is better, but it's not the best one. How long have you been looking at? What is it you're looking for? Better. Right, really good. Linda has said, what have you seen that you really liked? Well done. That's the killer question. And I'm going to just tweak it, Linda, but well done. The tweak on it is, what's the best you've seen so far? Because what that does is it cuts out noise. I'm not that bothered you've been looking for a month. I'm not bothered you've seen 15 properties. But by telling me what the best you've seen so far, that's feedback. And that, when I hear about that, if hopefully I know my stock, so I'm going to ask, I should say, oh, I know that bungalow, it's beautiful. What is it you liked about it specifically? And then I'm going to get them to break down some key feedback. But the key is, the better the question, the more likely to get a better outcome. And these top sales producers, these top 1%, what I notice is they create killer questions. These are questions that have been tried and tested and always get better responses, no matter what. And I've got many that I ask when I go on a meeting, and I'll share some of those soon. But once you get these killer questions, keep a note of them until they become habitual, until you literally don't even need to think about it. So let me share 3 or 4 that I've taught the real estate clients I work with. So the first one, if a buyer has made an inquiry online, let's say on Rightmove, and they're looking for this property, this specific property, most estate agents will go, great, I see you've interested in this one, let me book a viewing. But the really good ones will go, what attracted you to that property in particular? And you can do that with anything. I work with the biggest car leasing company in the country called Select Car Leasing. And when someone inquires about a specific vehicle on a deal, they will say, what was it about that deal or that vehicle that appealed to you? And it just gets someone talking. So it's a great question. And I do it if someone's, inquired about a specific course that I run. What was it about that course in particular that caught your eye? It just gets feedback. So going back to the estate agents, let me give you 4 questions they ask. And this is to qualify the search. The first one is obviously what attracted you to that property, or they say what's the best you've seen so far. The buyer will say, oh, I saw this one property, I absolutely loved it. It was a bit too much money, but I love the fact A, B, C, D, E, and F. And then you say, which of those things are most important to you? Or which of those things will you not compromise on? That's feedback, because now you know where they're at. See, I believe our job in sales is to understand the picture in someone's mind. So be it a buyer for property, I want to see their picture. Be it someone looking to book sales training, I want to know why, when, how, what was the catalyst? Why are they looking at training now? Something's happened in their business right now that's made them inquire. I want to know what that thing is, because that's the driver, that's the motivation. So let's look at, first of all, why do we even ask these great open questions? And I'm going to teach you 5 different techniques using open questions. We all know these open questions begin with a W, the what, why, when, where, which, and who. Finally, how. And another great one to remember is TED. Tell me, explain to me, describe to me. It's a great way of getting anyone talking. So you can do that in real estate. Tell me exactly what your dream property looks like. I can do that with an inquiry. I might say to someone, tell me what the ideal training course looks like for your team. Describe to me exactly what you'd like to cover on a 1 or 2 day training course. If I get an inquiry for a speaker, I might say to them, describe to me what you look for from a speaker for your conference. I can make assumptions, but I'd rather not. I'd rather hear their words and how they see things. So why do we ask open questions? There's about 10 reasons, believe it or not. One is we need to get the other person talking. There's a rule in sales, you've probably heard it before, the 80-20 rule. People love to talk about themselves, so let them. And the only way to do that is get them talking, get them engaged. So I always ask them good open questions that will get them talking more than me. And again, this is something I've seen with salespeople. 99% of salespeople talk more than the prospects. Top 1%, they talk much less. They talk 80-20 the right way round. So 1 is get them talking. 2 is make them comfortable. If someone's talking, especially about themselves, They're comfortable. If they're comfortable, they're going to like you. And if they like you, they're more likely to want to buy from you. So get them talking about them, about their business, about their product, whatever it might be. Why else? Well, think about, by asking questions of this person, what are we showing? We're interested. And they say this in sales, they say this in rapport. You don't need to be interesting, be interested. So for me, if I go back to a real estate example, one of the biggest things when a buyer is looking to buy a property, something's going on in their world. They've just got married. They want to buy their first house. They've just had children. They've just got divorced. They've just had kids. They've just had, I said that one. They've just changed, moved area for work, whatever. So many negotiators I speak to don't find out the why. They find out the details of the property, but they don't say, do you mind me asking, Mr. Buyer, what's the reason you're looking to buy right now? And now I'm showing a genuine interest in you. So why else? Gets them talking, shows we're interested, makes them comfortable, it's engaging, it's the best way to build rapport. But why else? Let me demonstrate, because there's about 5 other reasons. Imagine you go and see a doctor, and you go to this doctor and you say, Doctor, I've got a splitting headache. And the doctor says, well, you need some paracetamol. If the pain persists, come back and see me. You then see Doctor 2. You say, Doctor, I've got a splitting headache. The doctor sits you down. He says, where specifically is the pain? You say, right in the middle, like in my temples. He said, okay, how long have you been suffering? And you say, probably about 10 days, actually, on and off. He said, that's quite a while. When in the day do you get the pain? And you say, the second I wake up, I open my eyes and it's just pounding every morning. You said, when you say it's pounding, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being excruciating, where are you? You say probably about an 8. You said, okay, that's pretty high. How much liquid do you drink in the day? You say, I know, about a litre. He says, how often do you work out or do any exercise? You say, go to the gym twice a week. He said, from what you've told me, I'd recommend some paracetamol. If the pain persists, come back and see me. Show of hands, those listening on the chat room, who would see Doctor 1? Who would see Doctor 2? Just type in Doctor 1 and just put a number in, 1 or 2. Okay, we're getting a lot of 2 back, which is what I would hope and expect. Let me ask you a question. Which doctor is better medically trained? We don't know. You could assume, yeah, absolutely. A couple of you put both, a couple of you put neither. We don't know. So why did we all see Doctor 2? He showed an interest. He made me comfortable. He got me talking. He seemed to be the expert. Now, think of the words I just said. He seemed to be the expert. What knowledge did Doctor 2 share? Nada. He shared nothing. So why did he seem to be the expert? Because by asking questions, you're giving a perception that you're the expert, not them. And therefore, people like dealing with experts. They like dealing with specialists. They like dealing with thought leaders. So if the perception is he's the expert, you want to deal with an expert. Doctor 2 could have been a janitor. But the perception is he was the expert. And remember, perception is reality. And that's what this is about. So by not asking the questions, the perception you're giving is you're not interested and you're not an expert. Far from it. You're the opposite. You actually don't know much, which is why you're not asking questions. Why else did we choose Doctor 2? He made me comfortable. I trusted his opinion. I trusted him. He didn't do anything apart from ask 5 open questions, but I felt he was thorough, so I trusted. A couple of you said he was interested in me. Absolutely. Whereas the other one didn't give any indication that he cared. Why else? He said at the end, from what you've told me, I would recommend. See, I believe our job in sales is we're recommenders. We're not salespeople. We're experts. And our job as an expert is to recommend the right product, the right solution. And I can only do that if I ask enough questions and if I give a big enough a perception that I understand you and I care about you, I'm interested in you. The other thing about Dr. Tu is he got me talking. And remember, if I'm talking, I'm comfortable. Now, a lot of people struggle with what are these killer questions? You know, what should we be asking? So before I address that, and I want to help all of you watching today, giving you, and I'll design for you some killer questions. Let me just share 5 techniques that will always achieve those 10 things. It will engage someone, it will make them comfortable, it will get them talking, it shows you're interested, it will build a rapport, it will give a perception that you're the expert, it will make someone trust you, like you, it will allow you to be a recommender. This is the key 5 techniques. Technique number 1, tag on question. Tag on question is where you question a response. So if a client says to me, we're looking to do some sales training, my tag on is, what's the reason you're looking for sales training in particular? Zip. Get them talking. So a tag on is you question a response. Then I use something called a statement question. This is where I show that I'm genuinely interested and I get very involved and engaged in the conversation. So if someone says to me, they've done sales training in the past, they've not got the results they've achieved, so they're a bit nervous, I would say, look, I get that. You know, it's all about getting the right results. So can I ask you, what results were you looking for last time? So what I've done is I've made a statement, i.e. I get that results are very important to all of my clients. What results were you looking for last time and why do you feel you didn't get them? So statement followed by a question. One very clever technique out of the 5 is called a replay question. So what I do, any sales call I take, any meeting I go on, I pick up some information right at the beginning and I bring it back later. So, for example, I've got someone writing to me to confirm what you said. Yeah, go for it. Please confirm. For example, if I'm having a meeting and at the beginning of the conversation, they've said, yeah, look, when I joined the company 3 years ago, I did a lot of sales training at my previous company. They invested heavily, but when I joined here 3 years ago, there was nothing. There was no sort of training. It was all done internally, blah, blah, blah. And then we'd have a whole meeting. And then I'd say, you mentioned your previous company, they did a lot of training. Tell me more about that. What specifically did they train on and what were the results you saw? So I just replay something they say at the beginning. Why do I do that? It shows you listen. And people like to be listened to. So on purpose, I will replay something they said right at the beginning of the conversation or at the beginning of a phone call, whether it's over the phone, face to face. So that's 3, tag on, statement, replay. So just to clarify, tag on is you question their response. So I like golf. What do you like about golf? Tag on. Statement question, I like golf. I've never seen the fuss about golf at all. What is it in particular that appeals to you? That's a good statement question. So you don't have to agree what they're saying. You're just showing an interest in it. And you replay something they say. Let me share 2 more. It's called an opinion question. If someone's got certain knowledge about any topic, they love to share it. The way we are as humans, we love to, I wouldn't say maybe show off, but we like to demonstrate our expertise. We like to share our opinion, our knowledge. And I call it an opinion question. So I might say to, especially in real estate, let's say you're a valuer and you're valuing a vendor, a seller, his house or her house. You say, Mr. Vendor, Mrs. Vendor, what's your opinion on the market at the moment? You know, what have you seen in the last couple of years? Zip, let them give their opinion. And what you're doing, A, you're getting them talking. B, you're assessing how much they know or don't know, because you don't want to share things they might know. You're boring them and potentially you're patronising them, which obviously you never want. So they call that the opinion question. And finally, this is called a leading question. And it doesn't have to be open, but let's go with the open. So you might say, imagine, again, real estate, because I think it's easy examples that we can all relate to, because most of us have bought a house or rented a house. An estate agent is showing you around a house and they'll say to you, so Mr. Buyer, what do you like about this house? I'm not going to tell that estate agent what I don't like, because that's not what he asked. He led me to tell me what he likes. So if I put forward a concept for a proposal for some sales training or for speaking, I might say, so what do you like about the proposal I've put forward? They're only telling me what they like. So I've led them to what I want. They call that a leading question. What I notice with 95% of salespeople, and bear in mind I've worked with 26,000, so that's a lot of people, you know, nearly 24,000 or 23,000. What I've noticed with most is they ask closed questions that only get a yes or a no, or they ask what's called a loaded question. So, for example, you might go back to the estate agent analogy. If you're taking someone around a house, you'd say, what is it you like about this house? Do you like its character? And the buyer will go, yeah, I do. It's no feedback. It's no conversation. It's a conversation stopper. It's so important when you ask that question, zip. Let them give you their words, their opinions, their feedback. Only then can you get them to buy from you. So I want to look at this question further. What I noticed, and this is all about designing killer questions. What I noticed is I used to ask a couple of questions that always got the same outcome. And I wouldn't say it's the worst outcome, but it was just generic. Therefore, I realized I've got to change the question. So I used to go on, I still do, I go on a meeting with a MD, sales director, normally a decision maker if I can. And I'd say to them, you know, Mrs. Decision Maker, what would you like as a result of this sales training? Similar to saying, what's your goal? But I just worded it different. What would you like as a result? And the normal response I got was more sales. In fact, 99% of them said, yeah, we'd like our team to sell more. And I just kept getting that. And I thought, is that the real objective? So remember what I said, if you ask the wrong question, you'll get the wrong outcome. If you ask a better question, your probability of the right outcome goes up. So I changed it. And I use what I call a fast forward question. I suppose you can add it to your 5. This is the 6th technique. And I'd say this, I'd say, look, Mr. or Mrs. Decision Maker, let's fast forward 3 months from today. How do you know working with me has been a success? And guess what happened? I got different outcomes. Some people said, my team's morale has gone through the roof. I've never seen them buzz as much as they have now. Some people said the call activity is off the scale, off the Richter. They are making more phone calls they've ever done. They might say to me, our profit's gone up. My cost per lead has gone down. My team's conversion rates have gone up. Or they've sold more. But often or not, that wasn't the outcome. So when I changed the question, which was more engaging, it got that person to think differently. I got the real motivation. So just to repeat, let's fast forward 1, 2, 3 months from today? How do you know working with me has been a success? Zip. Now you get the truth. Now you get their real driver. And I think the clever part about this is the better the question, the more thought-provoking the question is. It gets them thinking differently. And then you're forcing them. If you're forcing them to think differently, they don't come up with what's like a generic autopilot. Can this be sent to me as I missed out to you? Yeah. Andy, I hope you won the deal and I hope you negotiate on your terms, Mr. Campbell. But I'll make sure Adam sends a recording to everybody who's on this. But what I want to look at now is what are the killer questions you're asking? And what I've noticed with the top 1% is they do. If I say to them, give me your 5 best questions, they just know them. They know them off by heart. They know them as part of their patter. So what I want you to think about now, and I want to help you, and I help you be creative, is think about your product, think about your service, think about information that you want to ascertain when you're making a sales call or when you're out on a sales meeting. And what are the questions you're asking to get that information? And I'm going to share some that I use. And I hope that inspires you just while you're thinking about this. And then what I'd like you to do, please, is in the chat room, message me some questions you ask, or maybe and let me look at those, and I'll hopefully it will give me an idea of what you're looking to achieve, but then I can look to tweak it to probably get an even better outcome. So what do I ask? So I told you the fast forward. I might say, if you had a magic wand, Mr. MD, what would the dream training course look like? And what you're doing by using the magic wand technique is you're giving them flexibility. You're giving them freedom to be creative. And they come up with some wacky ideas, but they come up with things that inspire them or what they'd really want to see in a training course. And on the back of that, I normally get some key information out of them. Here's another good question I ask. And I do this on any speaking inquiry or any training inquiry. I say to them this: what is the number one most important thing to you about the training company you work with? So if I get an inbound inquiry and I know they're looking at my company and they're looking at maybe 2 or 3 others, and if I'm the only one that asks that question, what is the number one priority in the training company that you partner with? And I use those words, partner with rather than work with, because I want them to see it as a partnership, because in my opinion it is. If I'm the only one who asks it and others don't, I'm immediately at an advantageous point, because I'm going to pick up the words they use. I'm also going to pick up what's important to them. So my email proposal, my follow-on correspondence via email, over the phone, in a meeting, is going to be tailored around what they tell me. And I've got to make sure I get what they say, but otherwise I'll question it further. But I'll also use their language. And I've spoken about that on another webinar. If you use their language, you see the world how they see the world. And that's important. It's really important. So write down, please, some questions that you use, or questions that you use that you're not that proud of, that you think, you know what, on thinking about it, it's not a killer question. So what ones could, and please write them and share them, because I'm going to look, see if can I improve them at all. I'm just going to have a drink of water while you do that. So really good question. What's important to you when choosing an agent is a great question, and it's one that I definitely teach. The only negative of it, sometimes they don't know what you mean. So if they go, you know, I'm not sure what you mean. So with some of my clients, and then you can relay, some of my clients, it's all about service. They want the best service ever. Some of my clients, it's about speed. They want us to sell as quickly as physically possible. Some it's about price. Some it's about giving the seller confidence that we've sold properties like theirs. So if they're ever unsure, spell it out to them, give them examples. So one person's put the budget question is vile. I agree. I hate it. So change the word budget to invest, because it's never budget. So if it's a vendor, a seller, I would say, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, what are you looking to invest to sell your home? Because they're choosing an agent, and that agent is going to do marketing, and that marketing is an investment. So I want to know what they're investing. And I would never use the word budget for training. It's not budget, it's an investment. So I'd always say, what are you looking to? I always find out what's their key goals, and I usually use the fast forward. And then I'd say, what do you want to invest in achieving those goals? Change the word budget. Let me read some of these questions. What's the main message? What is the main message you want to deliver to your clients with your branding image? Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, that's a really good question. So I would say along the line, yeah, I think that's a great question. What's the main message you want? I would say maybe what is your 3 core values, or what's your 3 core messages that you'd like to articulate to your dream customer? Because and sometimes be specific. If you say what's your 3 core messages, you get 3. Whereas if you say what's your main message or what's your message, you only get 1. So when I get asked to speak at a conference and I know I'm up against other speakers, I'll say if there's 3 key points you want me to get across, just 3, what are they? Now I get 3. Great question. Tell me how you can make your life easier when I become your estate agent. Yeah, really good question. And I know, Liam, you mentioned you feel like it's loaded. I get that, but it's only loaded if you put one example in their mouth. If you say some of my clients like A, some say B, some say C, some say D, and then don't say which one's for you, just let them think about that. Investment always has a return of some sort. Budget is a cost. So I want to pick up on that, Gabor. The investment is a return, but the return is what they're getting for the sale of their property. So if their property is on the market at 300,000, we're hopefully, as their agent, we're going to look to try and get them over 300 if we can. So they're investing to get either asking price or over. And the key is, if that vendor's speaking to 3 agents, I've got to get across that if they invest with me, I'm going to get them more than any other agent. So that's the point I want to get across. I want to give you a great question for decision makers, because I work with a lot of other businesses, not just estate agents, and they'll normally say things like, "Are you the decision maker?" And I remember I did this years ago. I worked with a company, and I said he was the MD, and I said, "John, I assume you're managing director. Are you the decision maker?" He said, "Of course I am." I said, "Fair enough." And then we had a meeting, which took me 2 hours to get to, hour meeting, 2 hours to get back. And in the meeting, he said to me, "I really like what you've shared, but I've got to speak to my business partner, John, who's the FD." They were both called John. And I thought, whose fault was that? My fault. I asked the wrong question. It's not, are you the decision maker? The question I should have asked, aside from you, John, who else needs to be involved when making this decision? This is really important also it's important for every business. If you're not in front of the decision makers, your chances of selling will always reduce. So if you're speaking to a vendor, again, key question, aside from you, Mr. Vendor, who else needs to be involved to make the decision? Now, let's say the vendor says, "Oh, my wife, Sarah." You then do what's called a justification statement. And this is the one I use when I go on meetings. I say, it's really important I meet you both. The reason being is you'll both have different questions. And I'd like to answer those so you can both make an informed decision. So let me repeat. Aside from you, who else needs to be involved to make the decision? Get a name out of them. And it might be more than one. If it's, for example, an estate agent's probate property, there's 5 siblings. For me, I sometimes have to have 4 directors involved: sales director, MD, FD, and ops director. So aside from you, who else? I get the list and then I say I need to meet all of you. And the reason being is all of you will have different priorities, different questions. And I need to answer those so you can all make an informed decision. And what I then do, if I find out there's 4 people involved in the decision, I'll email them all. I'd like to personally introduce myself and say I'm really looking forward to meet all of you on this date and time. And I'll just say, just so I'm best prepared, tell me what's your 2 priorities from the training you're looking to achieve, or what are you looking to get out of our meeting that we've got in 2 weeks' time? And then I can best prepare my meeting. It's all about the right questions. So anyone sitting there watching this thinking, my questions are pretty killer, I'm quite happy? Or are you sitting there thinking, actually, there's a couple of questions I asked that are very generic, that's probably not getting the right outcome that I want, or it always gets the same answer? Please write those or share that, because I'd like to help you and tweak it for you. And once you've got your killer questions, save them, type them up, save them, and use them every time. You'll get better outcomes. Okay, so a few of you are typing now, which I'm pleased. The way I've designed this in the past is I write a list. I do this for my clients, but I do it for me as well, is I write a list of maybe 10 things I want from a call or from a meeting. And then I work out, how do I design the questions? So I'll give you an example. If I'm phoning a company that I know already use a sales training company, my first line of questioning, and they call these problem questions or pain questions. What I want to do is evoke pain. So I want to get a negative about the company they use without being rude about them, because it just looks like bad salesmanship. I just want to read this. I think it requires practice. Worth writing a list of questions before you go in the meeting. People are like, yeah, absolutely, Chris or Christopher. Couldn't agree with you more. Chris said, if you can't see the chat room, always have a list of good questions ready. That's what the best salespeople do. They're best prepared. So if I know a company's using a competitor of mine, I will come up with 2 or 3 pain questions. I'll say things like, if there was one thing your current trainer could improve on, what would it be? If there was one thing they could improve on, what would it be? And if that doesn't get anything, I ask a scale question. I say, imagine, I said, if you had to rate your training company you work with, 10 being they are world class, and 1 being dreadful. Thanks, Philip. Good minds, good minds. 10 being they're world class, 1 being they're dreadful. Where do you rate them? Now, it's very rare you're going to get a 10. So the person might say, they're good. I give them an 8. Your tag on question is, okay, 8's good. What would make them a 10? Now you'll get feedback. It's a better way of saying, is there anything they can improve on? Because again, it's not thought provoking. So the person will go, not really. That's not always the truth. Great question. A part of the investment part. Yeah. So apart from the investment, what else could hold you back from making a decision right now? Great question. Great question. And they call that a preventative question, Gabor. So you could say, what one thing is preventing you from moving forward with me? Zip. What one thing? And if they say, well, actually, it's just the investment, then I would say, what are you comparing this against? As in, if it's the investment, what's the alternative investment that you're going to look to make to get the returns that we're talking about? And that's something I ask, because they invest in training normally for a few reasons. Like I said earlier, improve morale, increase call activity, make more sales, make better margin, blah, blah, blah. So if they don't do it with me, I want to know what's the alternative. They want to spend £10,000. Where are they going to spend that investment to get the right return? Another good question is the again, wish list, a bit like a magic wand. If you had a wish list, what 3 things are on there for the perfect training company? What 3 things are most important to you? And it's funny, they'll always come up with 3. Don't know why. Well, I do know why. You're leading them to give you 3. So if I draw a blank and I ask all these pain questions, but I don't elicit any pain, I then move on to my second sort of angle, which is review. So a lot of salespeople say things like, I know you said you're really happy with your current supplier. Have you ever reviewed them? Again, they'll just go, yes, didn't work, or no. Better question. I know you've been with your supplier now for 3-4 years. The market's changed. When did you last review them to ensure you're getting the best product or service and you're paying the right price? So when did you last review? It's a bit like estate agents. They find out that a buyer has got a mortgage in principle or an agreement in principle. And they say, a lot of negotiators say, would you like to get another opinion? And most buyers go, no, thank you, I'm good. Whereas a killer question is, I'm really pleased you've got a mortgage in principle. That puts you ahead of the curve. Who have you compared them against? Who have you compared them against? And what you're doing is you're, again, making them think that, oh, blind, I should have. So it's being really assumptive, but it will elicit a response because it's open. If you ask closed, you don't elicit responses. Any other questions, guys, that you asked that maybe could be tweaked to get a better outcome? Any others that you can think of? What I'm happy to do, so one of you asked, can you say, are you interested in benchmarking? So just think about that question, Neil Gunn. Are you interested in benchmarking? There's only 2 answers. Yes, which is luck. Salespeople don't work on luck. Or no. So a much better question is, when have you last benchmarked to make sure you're getting the best results possible? When? So keep it open. When have you last benchmarked? And if they say they have, say, great. Who was it with? And what was the criteria? What criteria did you use for the benchmark? And what were the results? What was the outcome? I work with a insurance company. They do private insurance, private medical insurance. And they're a market leader, actually, outright market leader. And they love this. When we spoke about the benchmark, I came up with this question and they loved it. So when they said, they're talking to a company saying, I know you've had quotes now from A and B and C, so 3 people. Question, why didn't you come to the market leader to get a quote? So it's planting what you're doing by asking that question is A, it's open, so it makes them think. But what else does it do? It gets in there that you're market leader without showing off. Or you could say, when have you last benchmarked against the market leading company? Same thing. You're just planting the seed that A, they should have, but B, you're the market leader. Whenever you can show off, do, but show off without being cheesy or a show off, but just getting it in there. What else, guys? Anyone else got some questions they asked? Because that was really useful by Neil Gunn. Can you say, are you interested? Look, of course you can, but if you want a better outcome, it's much better to keep it open. And remind me, go back to the point, why do we ask them? It's feedback. That's why we're asking them. We want someone talking, we want them engaged. If you want feedback, keep it open. You'll never get feedback with closed, and if you do, it's luck. So again, Neil Gunn, what you're doing, and that's absolutely fine. This is so normal. 95% of salespeople are doing what you do. Do you foresee any big changes? No, not really. Conversation stopper. What do you foresee as your biggest challenges in the next 3 years? Where do you see on the horizon the biggest change in your business coming? So that's a question I ask most estate agents. Say, look, with the With online, they're not going away. With a lot of auction agents now out there, what do you see as the biggest challenge you're going to face in the next year? How much better is that than, do you see any challenges on the horizon where they could say, not really, we've had them all. You might say, look, with the tenant deposit scheme up, the tenant deposit that you're not getting anymore, what challenge do you foresee with that loss of income? Rather than, are you worried about it? Yes. It's not that wrong question. And the last thing I want to finish on today, before I talk about something I'm launching, which I'm really excited about, is if you don't get the right outcome, always blame yourself. Always blame yourself. Look at the question. So one question is Orsi hijacking Gavin's account. My question, how can you turn your mind to actually ask these right? That's a great question, Orsi. So the way to do it is write down the question you ask, use it, get feedback, and then think, what's a better question? Just try and be creative with it. Yeah, try and be creative. Normally, you brainstorm it with some friends, work colleagues, your boss. You'll normally come up with the answer. And if you don't, use me. It's one of my skill sets is questions. It's just something I've been good at for years. Luckily, I've always been a bad listener, but that's something I've really spent a lot of time on getting better. I know how important in sales it is, but I was sort of quite natural as questioning as a kid. So it comes quite naturally to me, but sometimes I still have to think, what's a better question? Will asks, what's your opinion on the tenant fee ban? Are you prepared? So Will, great question, the first bit. What's your opinion on the tenant fee ban? Are you prepared? Wrong question, because they'll just go yes or no. So a better one is, what steps have you taken to be best prepared for the tenant fee ban? It's a better question. What steps have you taken to prepare yourself for the tenant fee ban? How far have you got in arranging finance? Yeah, great question, Timmy. How far have you got in arranging finance for your purchase? I asked the same question to a vendor for conveyancing, so estate agents. What steps have you taken so far to ensure you're going to be legally prepared? How much better is that than, have you spoken to a solicitor? Yes, no. What steps have you taken so far to ensure you're going to be legally prepared for the sale of your property? Much better question. Okay, before we summarize, before we wrap up, does anyone have, first of all, any questions for me? And if you do, it better be a good question. It better be a killer, or you're going to embarrass yourself. I'm joking. Do you have any questions for me at all? Open or closed, I genuinely don't mind. Or are you asking yourselves any questions that you think, you know what, that can be improved upon? If you do, and if after today, next week and the next couple of weeks, you think, you know what, I do ask these two questions, I don't normally get a good outcome, email them to me. You've got my details. Adam will send you out my details. Always feel free. Ping me an email, send me a message, send me a WhatsApp. If you've got any questions that you just like to get my opinion on, or think, is there a better way to say this? Thanks, Mandy. Is there a better way to say it? Then feel free. Reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. The more people I help, I'm living my dream. So genuinely. So thanks, Will. I think cold calling is all but dead. My boss doesn't. Cold calling is not dead. Absolutely not. However, I don't like the word cold. Cold implies you're not prepared. So change the word cold to smart. Yeah, I always really believe it's about the smart call. And you've really helped. Thank you, guys. I'm really pleased you've taken a lot from today. So on that, Phil, or Philip, I'm not sure what you prefer, but on that, Philip, to avoid offence, let me talk about something I'm launching, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, please. And I'd like a show of hands. Either put your hand up in the chat room, or just put a yes if you're up for it. But someone's just put, what about using closed questions to get a positive response? Yeah, Russell, great, fair question. You can, but that's more about not to get a positive response. That's more about to get a close or to clarify. You might say, Russell, does this make sense? Yes, no. Or you could say, can we do business? Can we do business? Yes, no. That's fine. So if you want to close, you can. So let me talk about what I'm going to be launching, and I just want to get your opinion of who's up for it. So I do a lot of live sales calls in my training on the bespoke training programs, and they're for companies of all sizes, between 10 salespeople and sometimes 100. But I now want to do it in a masterclass where it's much more affordable, and I can do it for individuals that would like to develop their ability at making sales calls and making that smart call. And what I mean by that is cold calls done smartly. So I just want to put this out there, and I'm going to be doing a special price for anyone who's been on this webinar or my previous webinars. And I'm going to do a live calling masterclass. And it's going to be relevant for any business, whether you're an estate agent, you sell software, you're in manufacturing, anything you do. If you want to get better at making outbound calls by using picking up the phone and phoning a prospect, I want to help you do that. And in one day, I want to run a masterclass that I'm 99.9% will get you the best results you've ever had. And I don't say 100 because I can never be absolutely convinced, but I'm 99.9 from my experience and my results. And what I want to do on that work masterclass is I'm going to make live calls for you. So if you're interested and want to get some feedback, is you're going to come with 5 of your dream prospects to that masterclass. You've got to have their name, you've got to have their number, ideally a mobile or a direct line. Switchboard's fine. And I'm going to make those calls for you. So that one day masterclass, I will teach you everything I've ever learned over the last 21 years of how to make this outbound sales call. And then I'm going to do it live. I'm going to show you what I can do and teach you the best way. And there's going to be an audio visual there. And I will make the live calls for you. So can I just have a show of hands or yeses in the chat room? Who's up for that and coming along to my first live calling masterclass? So Mo's up for it, Will's up for it. And there'll be information will go out. And what we're going to do, we're going to work out where the best location is going to be based on you guys tuned in today and previous webinars. And we're going to try and choose the most central location. It might be London, but it could be Manchester, wherever you're thinking. So Steve said maybe. Steve, what one thing is preventing that maybe being a yes? See what I did there, Steve? Great question. Got to go procrastination. Terrible. Gabor, here is a sales question. Give it to me. Give me the question. But so when you guys will send out information about this Monday, I'm so excited about it because I don't do this, but I will make the live calls for you on a loudspeaker. We're not going to get you to make any calls because that's not how I operate. Most people would hate the thought of that. But I want to teach you everything I teach. I want to do it live. I want to practice what I preach. And if I can, I will phone. Well, whatever happens, I will make sure I try at least one for every single one of you. So I will make sure I save enough time on that day to attempt one on each of you. I can't guarantee I'm going to get hold of that person, but I'm damn going to give it my best. And I'll teach techniques I use to get someone's mobile. So Russell's asked how much is the investment. Russell, I'm very pleased you said investment because I'd have killed you otherwise. It's going to be retailed at $297 a person, but because you're my fans, as it were, you come and watch me on this webinar, I'm going to do it 50% off for you only. So for those who come on my webinar and watch, there's going to be an early bird offer, but that's only for those who watch, have attended my webinar today and previous webinars. So it'll be £150 for those people only. But for everyone else, the general public, $297. But I'm so excited for this because, as I said, I do it for clients on a much bigger scale. I do it at talks to 200 people in an audience where I command much higher fees. But I've never done it in a one-day masterclass, and I think it's time to do that. and demonstrate what I can teach you and get you the results that you guys deserve. So I'm really pleased that, apart from Steve, I'm pleased it's well received. Procrastination, that's a terrible response. So we'll make sure, Steve, you're there. So before we wrap up, any questions at all? Because I've got a mentoring session in 4 minutes with one of my mentees I've got to get to. So any questions at all before we call it a day? So a couple of questions are coming in, or a couple of people are typing. Will Lincoln City. Chris, if I had a magic wand, I'll tell you, my friend. Thank you so much. I really hope you've enjoyed it. I've had some lovely messages, so thank you. I really enjoyed doing these, and I hope you enjoy receiving these. We're going to keep doing them, so please keep logging in. And thanks, Chris. And we'll send out a message for our next webinar, which is going to be about cross-selling and upselling. If 150 closed you a deal, would it worth it? Absolutely. You know, ultimately work out, in terms of the investment, work out what you would earn personally from one extra deal. Because I will, if I get hold of the right person for you, I will create an opportunity for you. That's my skill set. So I'll make an appointment, or I will make a sale for you, whatever your process is. So if I can help you get one extra deal, that's what I'm going to do for you. Yeah, there's definitely going to be a webinar, a recording, Mo, of this webinar. So I will make sure Adam sends it out. So guys, have an amazing weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks, Phil. I'm really pleased you enjoyed it. And thank you, guys. Pleasure always. Great weekend. I look forward to seeing you soon, and look forward to seeing you on the first live calling masterclass. Details will be sent out on Monday. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.